On November 14, 1986, Jacqueline Lard's ordinary day at her Stafford County real estate office took a sinister turn when she disappeared after work. The following day, a crime scene at her office suggested a violent struggle, and her body was eventually discovered concealed under a carpet in a wooded area miles away. Fast forward to 1989, Amy Baker, an 18-year-old who was visiting her family, vanished on her way home. Her abandoned car was found, sparking a mystery that endured for decades. How were these two cases linked, and what breakthrough ultimately led to their resolution in 2024? Amy Baker, a lively individual born on March 16, 1971, in Springfield, Fairfax County, Virginia, brought happiness to her family as the beloved daughter of Mark Baker and Sue Eisler. In a significant change of life, the Baker family, which also included Amy's younger brother David, moved from the bustling environment of Falls Church to the peaceful community of Hartwood in Stafford County. This relocation was motivated by her parents, Mark and Sue's desire for a more spacious residence and a piece of serenity away from the urban bustle of Fairfax County. Amy, while adapting to her new surroundings, frequently returned to Falls Church, a place filled with familiar faces and cherished memories, to visit friends and family. The Baker household provided a nurturing environment that nurtured Amy's growing interests. She had a passion for field hockey, demonstrating her talents on the varsity team, and a love for capturing moments through photography. With aspirations in the arts, Amy set her sights on attending art school in Savannah, Georgia. In the meantime, she found delight in working as an event photographer at the local mall, where she would take pictures of children with seasonal characters like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, capturing joyful moments for families. In contrast, information about Jacqueline Lard's early life is less well documented. Born in 1954, Jacqueline was a committed real estate agent in Stafford County by profession, married to Ronald Lard. They shared their lives with their two children. Jacqueline Lard, a dedicated professional and loving mother, played important roles both at work and home, although there is limited information about her personal interests and background. On November 14, 1986, Jacqueline went missing in Stafford County, initiating a perplexing and unresolved mystery. She was last seen at around 9 p.m. at Mount Vernon Realty, unaware that it would be her final moment alive. The following morning, her office revealed a disturbing scene, indicating a violent altercation. Stafford County detectives, along with the Virginia State Police Crime Scene Unit and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, meticulously searched the area for clues, including Jacqueline and her missing car. It was only a day later that two young individuals playing in a wooded area in Woodbridge made a startling discovery: Jacqueline's body hidden under discarded carpet, confirming her tragic fate. Her abandoned vehicle was later found in Fairfax County on December 18th. Despite not yielding immediate results, the collection of evidence during the investigation would prove crucial in solving her case decades later. Amy Baker's story unfolded in a similarly distressing manner. On March 29, 1989, the 18-year-old's journey to visit her parents abruptly halted on Interstate 95 when her car broke down. Leaving her blue 1970 Volkswagen Beetle behind, she set out for a nearby Exxon station. Throughout the night, Amy's absence from home deeply concerned her mother, Sue Baker. Despite trying to rationalize Amy's delay as an adult decision, Sue sensed a grave outcome as dawn approached. Sue frantically searched for her daughter, making calls to hospitals, towing services, relatives, and the police, only to discover that Amy's vehicle had been abandoned the previous night. The response to Amy's disappearance was mixed, with initial speculation from law enforcement suggesting that she may have chosen to vanish. However, the circumstances surrounding the case raised doubts about the initial theory. Amy's belongings were left behind, and her vehicle was found in an unusual location, contradicting the assumption of a voluntary disappearance. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, who even deployed a helicopter, Amy's family felt compelled to take matters into their own hands. Sue Baker and her sister-in-law, Mary Bellette, armed themselves with homemade missing persons posters and tirelessly searched the area. Their determination to raise awareness about Amy's disappearance was a testament to their resilience in the face of the challenges posed by the pre-digital age. Eventually, their search led them to a heart-wrenching discovery near the Backlick Road Bridge. Amy's body, hidden by foliage, was found just yards away from where she was last seen. This tragic find on Good Friday forever changed the lives of the Baker family.
I just miss her, that's all. I just live it all over every night. I don't sleep sometimes because of it. And you can't, it's your child.
These events, separated by time and circumstances, shared a common thread of unanswered questions and the anguish experienced by families left in a state of uncertainty. The investigation into Jacqueline Lard's untimely death was met with a collaborative effort from various law enforcement agencies at both the state and federal levels. The Stafford County Sheriff's Office, Prince William County Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Drug Enforcement Administration joined forces to form a formidable task force dedicated to unraveling the mystery surrounding her demise. Despite extracting DNA from collected evidence and conducting exhaustive searches through Virginia and national DNA databases, the identity of the killer remained elusive. Numerous individuals of interest were compared, and familial searches were conducted, but no significant leads were found, causing the investigation to reach a standstill and eventually go cold. The discovery of Amy Baker's body marked a crucial turning point in her case. Prompted by the desperate search for Amy, law enforcement officials swiftly secured the scene. The sight of Amy's new tennis shoes, barely worn since her 18th birthday, served as a haunting confirmation of the devastating loss her mother had endured. Despite the swift response that followed the grim discovery, the way Amy's case was handled by authorities left her family feeling disheartened and frustrated. Criticisms were raised about the initial search efforts, which the grieving family deemed inadequate. They mourned the tragic necessity of having to find their loved one themselves, a task they believed should have been completed by the police within the first few days of Amy's disappearance. The autopsy results painted a brutal picture. Amy had been subjected to violence, violation, and strangulation, her life cut short tragically soon after she left her vehicle. The investigation evolved into a homicide case, leaving the family and community in shock and mourning the profound loss. Following Amy's murder, the police appealed to the public for help, focusing on two suspicious vehicles seen near Amy's abandoned car, an early 80s dark-colored Buick and a blue Ford Escort. Despite the efforts and an influx of tips after the news of Amy's murder broke, a significant call to Crime Stoppers remained a tantalizing lead that never fully materialized into a breakthrough. The caller, believed to possess crucial information, never contacted the authorities again despite their pleas. This unresolved lead, coupled with the urgent plea for the caller to step forward once more, highlighted the challenges and frustrations inherent in the investigation. With no new leads emerging, the case eventually went cold. In the relentless pursuit of justice for Jacqueline Lard and Amy Baker, investigative teams driven by a combination of determination and cutting-edge forensic technology achieved a major breakthrough that led to solving these long-standing cold cases in 2024. Sheriff Decatur of the Stafford County Sheriff's Office, who had been involved in the Lard case since its inception in 1986, ensured that the investigation never went dormant. The dedication to seeking justice for Jacqueline was reflected in the determination of the detectives handling Amy Baker's case, each motivated by an unwavering resolve. The breakthrough in these cases came when retired. Detective Dave Wood made the decision to utilize forensic investigative genetic genealogy, combining DNA analysis with genealogical research to shed new light on the identity of the killer. Parabon Nanolabs, a leading company in DNA phenotyping, played a crucial role in this endeavor. Through their advanced analysis, they linked the DNA evidence from Jacqueline Lard's murder scene to that of Amy Baker, conclusively connecting the two cases for the first time. The detectives delved into the circumstances surrounding Amy's tragic demise, discovering that her car had run out of gas and deducing that she may have been seeking help when she encountered her attacker. This vital piece of information added depth to their understanding of her final moments and emphasized the brutality of the encounter. In 2021, the cold case detectives of the Fairfax County Police Department submitted their evidence to DNA Labs International, resulting in the development of a comprehensive DNA profile. Once this profile was uploaded to the Virginia State Database, a direct link to the ongoing investigation of Jacqueline Lard's murder was revealed. This connection between the two cases marked a pivotal moment, propelling the investigation forward with renewed determination. On December 14, 2023, the detectives identified a family name that could potentially be associated with the suspect, leading them on a path that eventually led to Elroy Neal Harrison, a 65-year-old resident of Stafford County. This identification was the culmination of years of meticulous investigation, innovative technological application, and the relentless pursuit of answers by all those involved. Subsequent follow-up on this lead and the acquisition of a search warrant for Harrison's DNA solidified their suspicions. In February of 2024, the Department of Forensic Science confirmed the match based on the DNA collected from Harrison. Consequently, after almost 40 years, the enigma surrounding the deaths of Jacqueline Lard and Amy Baker was ultimately resolved. Elroy Neal Harrison, a name that remained unknown until the groundbreaking resolution of these two enduring cold cases, was born in 1959. Although much of his early life remains mysterious, the available information portrays a man who once resided among the inhabitants of Stafford County, Virginia. However, his life took a significant turn in 1983 when he was apprehended for a bank robbery in Virginia, resulting in his imprisonment. Harrison's time behind bars concluded on June 30th, 1986, when he was released back into society. This timeline is crucial as it closely precedes the tragic events involving Jacqueline Lard and Amy Baker. On March 4th, 2024, a significant breakthrough occurred in the long-standing cold cases of Jacqueline Lard and Amy Baker when Elroy Neal Harrison was indicted by a grand jury in Stafford County. The charges against him were severe, including first-degree murder, abduction with the intent to defile, and aggravated malicious wounding of Jacqueline Lard, along with breaking and entering with the intent to commit murder. The following day, on March 5th, 2024, law enforcement officers arrested Harrison at his residence in Stafford. At the age of 65, Harrison found himself facing the full force of the law as he was booked into the Rappahannock Regional Jail in Stafford, charged with murder, abduction, assault, and burglary. Held without the possibility of bail, Harrison awaited his arraignment, a pivotal moment in this decades-long saga, scheduled for April 5th, 2024. This event marked the commencement of the legal proceedings against him. Throughout the years since the tragic loss of Jacqueline Lard and Amy Baker, their families have embarked on a complex journey of grief and resilience. Edwin Lard, the son of Jacqueline, serves as a prime example of resilience. Despite growing up in the shadow of his mother's unresolved murder, Edwin decided to dedicate his life to serving others. He initially pursued a career as a Navy medical corpsman and later transitioned to becoming a paramedic. However, his commitment to helping others did not end there. Edwin went on to assume the role of executive director at Rescue Task Force, a consulting group specializing in threat protection. As a father to 3 daughters and a son, Edwin stands as a testament to the unwavering spirit of his family. He firmly asserts, "While my mother may have been his victim, I refuse to be his victim. Neither my family nor I will succumb to victimhood." This resolute refusal to let tragedy define them is also mirrored by the Baker family, who have chosen a path of resilience in the face of unimaginable loss.
35 years, and for the other lady, it was 38. It's just amazing. You wanted to laugh, you wanted to do a high five.
I thought I'd be dead, really, that I died before I knew.
To be clear, for them, this is not closure.
That's not a word I use because you can't have closure. It's like putting a top on a box. You can't do that when it's your child.
But it's one step closer to getting justice.
I want to see him never see the light of day again.
For their only daughter.
Here's Amy. See, so when we come out of our bedroom, we see her.
In the early hours of August 13th, 2005, Rodriguez unlawfully entered a residence, armed himself with a knife from the kitchen, and proceeded to a bedroom where a 21-year-old woman was asleep. He threatened her with the knife in an attempt to commit a sexual assault. Rodriguez momentarily shifted the knife during the assault, allowing the woman to disarm him. According to Mills County Sheriff Anthony Poole, the incident deeply affected the entire county. Sheriff Poole emphasized that such occurrences were rare in the county. Following a brief struggle, the suspect escaped, leaving behind a single drop of blood. This drop of blood was a crucial piece of evidence that was collected by the Mills County Sheriff's Office, but due to limited technology, little progress could be made. The blood sample was eventually uploaded to the combined DNA index system. The case remained unsolved for nearly 20 years, causing frustration among all involved parties. Sheriff Poole recalled the shock and disappointment felt by the county residents. In 2021, the Texas Rangers collaborated with the Sheriff's Office to conduct a familial DNA search on the blood sample, utilizing new technology funded by the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. A familial match was identified, leading to the arrest of 41-year-old Jesse Rodriguez. Rodriguez promptly confessed to the crime, expressing relief at being apprehended after nearly 2 decades of guilt. He admitted to breaking into the victim's home and attempting to assault her, but ultimately fleeing after sustaining an injury during the struggle. Jesse Rodriguez from Zephyr admitted guilt to attempted aggravated sexual assault of an adult, resulting in a 20-year prison sentence. Sheriff Poole hailed the outcome as a significant victory for the county. The Texas Rangers acknowledged the crucial role played by Maricopa County Sheriff's Office in collecting DNA, as well as the assistance provided by forensic scientists from the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab in Waco, Garland, and Austin. Sheriff Poole expressed pride in serving the public and communities. The breakthrough in a major cold case was revealed by the Texas Rangers just before Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Charlie Wilkinson, Executive Director of Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas, emphasized the importance of showing gratitude towards law enforcement for their continuous efforts in ensuring public safety, stating that while every day should be Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, it is essential to acknowledge and thank them for their dedication. December 16, 1983 marked a tragic and shocking day for the city of Belfast. On that fateful Friday, Sonny Groton, a well-known U.S. Navy officer, had just returned home to 12 White Street for the weekend. His wife, Norma, eagerly awaited his arrival inside. However, before he could even reach the door, he was mercilessly shot 3 times. This mysterious assassination sparked a decade-long investigation by the authorities in Maine, but unfortunately it yielded no fruitful results. Nearly 17 years later, 2 agents from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, Jeff Morrow and David Truesdale, made a solemn vow to uncover the truth behind the assassination of Officer Sonny Groton. Situated approximately 18 miles north of Rock Island, at the mouth of the Passagasawakeag River, lies the historic and picturesque city of Belfast. This charming mid-coast city in Maine is renowned for its rich history, architectural beauty, and scenic waterways. Often regarded as the finest city to reside in within Maine, Belfast boasts a population of just over 6,000 individuals. The residents of this close-knit community are known for their kindness and hospitality towards both locals and newcomers alike. Since its establishment in 1850, Belfast has been chosen as a beloved home by numerous citizens. During the early 90s, one of such residents was Mr. Mervyn Sonny Groton. Born on November 15, 1937, to Mervyn Laforest and Margaret Hamilton Groton, Sonny spent his childhood and adolescent years in Belfast, Waldo County, Maine. As an only child, he was raised by his loving parents. Those who knew Sonny from his early years to his teenage days all shared the same sentiments about him. He possessed a kind heart, a strong work ethic, and a loving nature, always willing to lend a helping hand. Additionally, he had a passion for gadgets, showcasing his geeky side. Despite his intelligence, Sonny made the decision to drop out of high school during his teenage years. Sonny found himself deeply infatuated with a woman named Norma Small at that time. Despite their contrasting personalities, they formed an unusual but loving couple. Their affection for one another led them to tie the knot in matrimony not long after. In 1954, they joyfully welcomed their firstborn, a son named Russell Groton. 3 years later, on September 29, 1957, their family expanded with the arrival of a baby girl named Betty Ann Groton. Completing their trio of children was a boy named Mervyn. The initial years of their marriage proved to be challenging as they navigated the complexities of balancing their relationship and family life. Unfortunately, their struggles intensified on May 27, 1959, when a devastating fire engulfed their home. Sonny and Norma managed to escape the flames, but tragically, all 3 of their children perished in the inferno. Russell was 4 years old, Betty Ann was merely 1, and Mervyn was a mere 7 months old at the time of their untimely demise. The children's funeral took place on May 30, 1959, at the Combs Funeral Home, followed by their burial in the Grove Cemetery in Belfast, Maine, at 2 p.m. that Friday afternoon. The immense pain and sorrow that consumed Sonny and Norma in the aftermath of this tragedy were indescribable. However, Sonny refused to allow it to consume him entirely. Despite being a high school dropout, he exhibited unwavering determination to rebuild his life alongside his wife. Sonny toiled relentlessly to forge a successful career in the military, ultimately joining the Navy. His fellow Navy officers held him in high regard, admiring his strong moral compass and unwavering belief in the American dream. Despite the hardships he had endured, Sonny had successfully rebuilt his life and his family. With a stable career, Sonny and Norma decided to expand their family once again. Sometime later, they welcomed a baby girl named Rosalind. Over the years, Norma gave birth to 2 more children, a boy named Michael and a girl named Nina. Sonny's determination and resilience allowed him to raise his 3 children while enjoying a fulfilling career in the Navy for the next 2 decades. In the early 1980s, Sonny, still serving as an enlisted naval serviceman, was stationed at the Naval Education Training Center base in Newport, Rhode Island. He took on the role of a machinist mate instructor, training new naval officers in surface warfare skills and shipboard equipment. Sonny's routine involved working and living in Newport during the weekdays and returning to his family home in Belfast on weekends. On December 16, 1983, Officer Sonny Groton followed his usual routine. After training the new naval officers, he made his way back home to Belfast, eagerly anticipating spending time with his wife and children. As he arrived in his driveway around 7:30 p.m., Sonny checked his pocket to ensure his pay was still there before stepping out of his pickup truck. Although his daughter Rosalind was not yet home, he knew his wife, Norma, and son, Michael, were eagerly awaiting his arrival inside. With a smile on his face, Sonny began walking down the driveway, looking forward to embracing his loved ones. Tragically, Sonny never reached the door that night. On the evening of December 16, 1983, Norma Small was enjoying a card game with a friend in the comfort of her home. Meanwhile, she engaged in a phone conversation with her daughter, Rosalind. In another part of the house, Norma's son, Michael, was in his bedroom, strumming his guitar alongside a friend. Suddenly, at approximately 7:33 p.m., Norma and her friend were startled by the sound of a truck pulling up in their driveway. A few minutes later, 3 distinct and loud bangs echoed from outside the house. Rosalind, who was still on the phone with her mother, also heard the noises and speculated that they were caused by the truck backfiring in the background. Curious, she inquired about her father's whereabouts and the source of the noise. Concerned that something might be wrong with her father's truck, she sought answers. Unfortunately, before receiving a response, her mother abruptly ended the call, leaving Rosalind puzzled. Reacting swiftly, Norma rushed outside to investigate the origin of the disturbing sounds. To her horror, she discovered her 46-year-old husband lying lifelessly in a pool of blood in the driveway. The scene was gruesome, with a portion of his face obliterated and his life slipping away before his own home. At precisely 8:45 p.m., Officer Mark Nickerson, a trooper from the Maine State Police, received a distress call from a residence on 12 White Street in Belfast. The caller informed him that Naval Officer Sonny Groton had just been shot. Without hesitation, Officer Nickerson and a team of fellow officers hurried to the scene, arriving a few minutes before 9 p.m. Despite the swift actions of the on-site emergency medical technicians who promptly transported Sonny Groton to Waldo County Hospital, it was tragically too late. Later that evening, Officer Mervyn Sonny Groton was pronounced dead, and the location was officially declared a homicide crime scene. Once the authorities had secured the area, their focus shifted to uncovering any potential physical evidence left behind by the perpetrator. It didn't take long for the detectives to discover 30 rifle casings in the family's backyard, nestled between two wood piles. They were found approximately 30 to 40 feet away from where Sonny's body was located. Once the casings were collected as evidence, the detectives meticulously searched the entire area in hopes of finding any other clues that could potentially lead them to the perpetrator. Despite their thorough efforts, no additional physical evidence was uncovered at the crime scene that fateful evening. Initially, many officers speculated that it could have been a robbery gone wrong. However, the detectives had a gut feeling that there was more to the story. Sonny had just received his paycheck before returning home, carrying over $900 with him. Surprisingly, not a single dollar was taken from him, indicating that this was not a random act of theft, but a carefully planned murder. The detectives were aware that Sonny had succumbed to 3 gunshot wounds, 2 to his torso and 1 to his face. They eagerly awaited the results of the autopsy to gain further insight into his tragic demise. The post-mortem examination took place the following day, revealing that the first bullet struck his left hip, the second pierced through his left upper arm, traversed his torso, and exited through his back. After being hit by the second bullet, Sonny collapsed to the ground, vulnerable to the final shot fired by the assailant standing above him. While it was not officially confirmed, it appeared likely that Sonny pleaded for his life at that moment, only to be met with a fatal shot that obliterated the lower part of his face. This gruesome murder sent shockwaves throughout the city of Belfast, where homicides were a rare occurrence, leaving all residents on edge. The detectives had meticulously prepared to launch a thorough investigation into the tragic death of Mervyn Sonny Groton, a well-respected and beloved member of the community. The local authorities were left puzzled, questioning who could have harbored such malice towards Sonny Groton. However, the detectives already had a suspect in mind. In cases like this, detectives often adhere to an unwritten rule. When it comes to spousal murders, the initial suspect is typically the spouse. Norma Small had already been surrounded by numerous rumors, making her the ideal starting point for their investigation. Once the detectives began looking into Norma Small, they quickly discovered that there was a significant amount of truth to the rumors. They received information indicating that while Sonny was away at the Naval Education Training Center base in Newport, Rhode Island, Norma had taken advantage of her newfound freedom and led a completely different life than the one Sonny may have known. There was evidence of multiple extramarital affairs, involvement in drug trafficking, and substance abuse. Further investigations also revealed that although Sonny may not have been aware of Norma's drug habits, he may have suspected or discovered some of her numerous infidelities. In November, there had apparently been a heated incident where Sonny expressed his frustration and stated that he couldn't continue in this manner. However, despite everything, He couldn't bring himself to leave the mother of his children and his wife of 26 years. He was the type of man who believed that anything could be fixed, even his failing marriage. Therefore, he decided to put in the effort to salvage their relationship. Unfortunately, Sonny was tragically killed the following month before he had the opportunity to mend their marriage. As the investigation progressed, more disturbing information came to light. An unnamed friend of Norma, who happened to be present at the couple's home when Sonny was preparing to depart for Newport, Rhode Island, provided the detectives with a first-hand account of what she had witnessed. She saw Sonny bid his wife farewell with a kiss and overheard Norma utter the chilling words, "That will be the last time he does that to me." The deeper the detectives delved into Norma's life, the more unsettling the revelations became. She had reportedly expressed her dislike for Sonny's weekend visits and expressed her happiness when he left for the week. Further investigations revealed that Sonny was preparing to retire from the Navy and permanently move back home to Maine. This could have been a potential motive for his murder. The detectives expanded their inquiries and discovered more disturbing statements made by Norma over the years. She had allegedly told friends and witnesses that Sonny's death would make her financially better off due to insurance money. This led the detectives to believe that money was the driving force behind the crime. To support this theory, they delved into Norma's financial records and discovered that she would inherit the real estate she co-owned with Sonny and also receive his death benefit from the Navy. At this stage of the investigation, all signs pointed towards Norma as the prime suspect. However, despite the suspicious nature of their findings, they lacked concrete evidence that could be presented in court. The detectives conducted numerous interviews with Norma, hoping to catch her in a slip-up or obtain a confession. Unfortunately, Norma remained tight-lipped. During one of the interviews, the detectives proposed a polygraph test, but Norma refused. This only heightened their suspicions, as her refusal suggested she was hiding something. The detectives were aware that Norma had hired a hitman, but their attempts to identify the assassin proved fruitless. It was as if the gunman had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only bullet casings. The investigation had taken a turn for the worse, with no confession from Norma and the hitman's identity still a mystery. The detectives were at a loss on how to proceed. Despite the bleak outlook, they had a potential suspect in mind for the hitman, Joel Fuller, the only man in Belfast capable of such a heinous act. Fuller was infamous for his wickedness, described by authorities as the embodiment of evil. He was cunning, intelligent, and devoid of any moral compass. Rumors circulated that he would do anything for money. The detectives made numerous attempts to interrogate Fuller, hoping to uncover any connection to Sonny's murder, but their efforts proved fruitless. Undeterred, they shifted their focus to Norma, hoping she would crack under pressure. She had been interviewed over 11 times, yet she never provided any incriminating information. The case seemed to be growing colder by the day, but the detectives refused to give up. They tried various methods to link Fuller to the crime scene, but all their attempts were in vain. The case was reaching a dead end, with no substantial evidence against Norma or Fuller. Despite multiple failed investigations, the detectives persisted, unwilling to let go. However, as time passed, the case eventually went cold. The homicide file was shelved, leaving the questions surrounding Officer Sonny Groton's murder unanswered. 17 years had elapsed since Sonny's death, yet his murder remained etched in the minds of two special agents from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. One of these agents was Mr. Jeff Morrow. Agent Morrow had always harbored the belief that he could solve the case if given the chance, ever since he first learned about it. On the other hand, Agent Truesdale, an undercover specialist, shared the same determination to crack the case. Growing up in a military family, Agent Truesdale was driven by a personal connection to the case, as any harm done to military personnel fueled his desire to seek justice. The two agents eventually joined forces to exchange their thoughts and hypotheses for a potential new investigation. After nearly 20 years, the long-dormant homicide case of Officer Mervyn Sonny Groton was finally reopened. This time, a collaborative effort between the Naval Criminal Investigative Service and the Maine State Police was initiated, with detectives and agents working hand in hand. Progress was swift, and Special Agent Morrow soon caught a break when a man named Larry Phillips came forward with a confession that could potentially unmask the killer. The newfound information brought hope and optimism to the investigative team as it hinted at the possibility of identifying the perpetrator behind Sonny Groton's murder. During his meeting with the investigators, Mr. Phillips recounted a chilling tale from 16 years ago during a road trip through Maine's wilderness with a friend. The conversation took a dark turn when his friend casually mentioned using a .30 to .30 rifle to carry out a murder at the behest of his wife without disclosing any names. The horrifying details shared by Phillips's friend shed light on the sinister events surrounding Officer Groton's tragic death. In order to substantiate his claims, his friend proceeded to lead him to the creek where he had disposed of the weapon. However, when Phillips attempted to retrieve it, his friend intervened, informing him that the rifle's barrel was bent and rendered useless for direct shooting, thus discouraging any further attempts. The attentive agents then inquired about the identity of Larry Phillips's friend, to which Mr. Phillips disclosed that his name was Joel Fuller. At this point, the investigation had come full circle, as it once again revolved around Joel Fuller and Norma Small, even after all these years. The agents acknowledged that the initial suspicions of the detectives who conducted the original investigation were indeed accurate. Nevertheless, they could not accept Larry Phillips's account at face value, as there remained the possibility that he himself could be the perpetrator, using Fuller as a scapegoat. Consequently, the detectives subjected him to a polygraph test, which he successfully passed. Further inquiries also revealed that the rifle mentioned by Phillips had already been recovered. It was found in May of 1985, a mere 2 years after the murder of Sonny Groton, and the detectives at the time believed it to be the murder weapon. The firearm in question was a lever-action .30 to .30 caliber Winchester rifle, which was subsequently sent to a firearms and tool mark examiner by the state police for analysis of the casings discovered at the crime scene. Despite extensive testing, the examiner was unable to definitively establish that it was the same weapon used to commit the murder. Despite the absence of a concrete murder weapon that could serve as evidence, Phillips's confession provided a glimmer of hope for the detectives. All they required now to obtain an arrest warrant was a confession from either Norma or Fuller. Engaging with Fuller proved to be a straightforward task, as he was already serving multiple life sentences for the murder of 2 drug dealers during the course of a separate investigation. Fuller had been convicted in court and incarcerated a mere 2 years after Sonny's tragic demise. The detectives swiftly made their way to the correctional facility in an attempt to interrogate him once more. However, even after a span of 17 years, Fuller remained tight-lipped. Their next course of action was to question Norma, but they were aware that the conventional methods would not yield any results. They had learned from the mistakes of the previous detectives who had repeatedly questioned Norma to no avail. Therefore, they decided to employ an unconventional approach that would catch Norma off guard. Agent Truesdale, an expert in undercover operations, devised a plan with Agent Morrow. In this operation, Agent Truesdale would assume the identity of Tony, a friend of Fuller, and meet Norma. He would inform her that both he and Fuller had spent time in prison together, forging a friendship. Under the guise of concern, he would then inquire if Norma had divulged any information to the police, as Fuller was apprehensive about her loose lips. The hope was that Norma would take the bait and reveal the secrets she had concealed for all these years. Tracking down Norma proved to be a relatively simple task for the investigators. She had relocated to Gass, a city in Kansas, during the late 1990s. Despite this, the Maine police had kept tabs on her. Following Sonny's demise, Norma had received a substantial sum of $180,000 in life insurance and Navy death benefits. However, she had somehow managed to squander it all, as her financial records indicated a period of financial hardship. The investigators meticulously monitored her every move and discovered that she was employed as a cleaning lady at the Crossroads Motel. Once Norma's whereabouts were established and her activities were under surveillance, Special Agents Jeff Morrow and David Truesdale selected February 28, 2001 as the opportune moment. They discreetly captured photographs and videos of her white vehicle as they trailed her to the motel where she worked. When Norma arrived at the parking lot, the NCIS agents who had been tailing her deemed it the perfect opportunity to initiate contact. Thus, Undercover Agent Truesdale approached Norma and commenced the operation. Agent Morrow, who captured the entire scene on film, felt a wave of relief as the initial phase of the covert operation proved successful. Agent Truesdale had skillfully convinced Norma that he was Tony, a former inmate and close associate of Fuller. Now, all he needed to do was coax her into making an incriminating statement. Although it wasn't a direct confession, Norma had inadvertently revealed that she possessed crucial information. As she vehemently denied being the informant and expressed her ignorance about the identity of the snitch, she instructed Agent Truesdale to assure Fuller that she hadn't cooperated with the police. Special Agent Morrow couldn't help but wear a triumphant smile when Norma expressed her expectation of reciprocation. After 17 long years, she had finally slipped up, and they had caught her. However, there was one statement from Norma that troubled the agents. Her remark about not knowing who could be talking suggested the involvement of additional individuals. Agent Truesdale inquired if she had discussed the matter with anyone else. At that moment, all the Naval Criminal Investigative Service agents and detectives eavesdropping on the conversation knew they had a solid case. Not only did they have Norma cornered, but they also had a new lead. A thorough investigation was promptly launched into Boyd Smith, who was revealed to have resided in Sonny's home as a tenant during the summer of 1982. Boyd was the boyfriend of Rosalind, one of Sonny's daughters. Although it took some time for the investigators to locate him, they eventually discovered his whereabouts and current activities, just like they did with Norma. Consequently, on April 6, 2001, they orchestrated a similar undercover operation involving Boyd. 2 undercover agents patiently waited for him in a red car parked on the side of the road, and it didn't take long for Boyd to arrive in his green pickup truck. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service undercover agents knew they had to handle this situation delicately because, unlike Norma, Boyd hadn't provided them with many details about his involvement. Boyd was put in a position where he had to answer a question that would force him to reveal everything. Finally, after almost 20 years, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service special agents and the Maine police achieved their goal. They managed to extract a solid confession from a witness involved in the case. Following that, the undercover agents engaged in casual conversation with Boyd, hoping to gather any additional information before releasing him. Once Boyd Smith stepped out of the car, the investigation was effectively concluded. It didn't take long for an arrest warrant to be issued for Norma Small. Norma E. Small was born in July 1939 to Mr. and Mrs. Russell Morris Small. She grew up in Belfast, Maine, alongside her 2 sisters, Yvonne and Dorothy, and her brother Everett. During her teenage years, she fell in love and married her boyfriend at the time, a man named Mervyn Sonny Groton. People who were acquainted with the couple provided numerous statements to the police, highlighting the stark differences between them. Sonny was often described as a kind individual always willing to help others, while Norma was portrayed as a selfish, self-centered, and greedy person who prioritized herself above everyone else. Those who knew them attributed Norma's unpleasant behavior to her upbringing, as it was evident that these negative traits had developed during her childhood. Despite the opinions of others, Sonny, deeply in love, paid no attention to the criticism. However, as time went on, their situation deteriorated over the course of their 26-year marriage. Norma engaged in a concerning number of extramarital affairs, sold and consumed illicit drugs, and frequently deceived and manipulated people for her own benefit. Throughout their lengthy marriage, Norma's offensive actions repeatedly threatened to tear their family apart. Nevertheless, Sonny, always prioritizing his children, persisted in trying to salvage their relationship rather than giving up on everything. In the later years of her marriage, Norma frequently confided in her friends about her disdain for her husband, emphasizing that her only motivation for staying with him was his financial support. Upon further investigation, it became apparent that Norma's husband was growing increasingly frustrated with her actions. Rather than risk losing his financial assistance through a divorce, Norma devised a plan to murder the father of her children, allowing her to benefit from his death benefits and inherit their real estate. The heinous nature of the crime left detectives perplexed for nearly 2 decades, and Norma nearly succeeded in evading justice if not for the intervention of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. On May 7, 2001, Norma Small was charged with the murder of Mervyn Sonny Groton by a jury in Waldo County. She was subsequently apprehended on May 9th in Lola City, near her original residence in Gas City, Kansas. Norma was taken to the Lola police station for questioning by the authorities who arrested her. During the interrogation, she confessed to her crime, admitting that she had enlisted the help of Boyd Smith to kill her husband in exchange for $10,000. Norma had promised to pay Boyd from Sonny's pension after his demise. However, she claimed to have changed her mind, but was unable to locate Boyd in time to prevent him from carrying out the shooting. With her confession on record, the detectives inquired as to the motive behind the murder, seeking to understand the circumstances leading up to the crime and any emotional factors involved. Norma simply stated that there was no specific reason for her actions. She had grown tired of her husband and decided to have him killed. The detectives found her statements perplexing, especially considering the information provided by the couple's daughter, Rosalind, who had already shared details about Sonny and Norma's married life with the authorities. Rosalind had testified that her father had never raised his voice to her mother, had never been cruel or abusive, and had always made sure to fulfill her mother's desires. The detectives suspected that Norma was withholding information and believed she was being untruthful. During the course of the interrogation, an attempt was made to elicit information from Norma regarding the incident. Throughout this period, Norma went on a tangent about how her creator had forgiven her for her actions, thus absolving her of any guilt. When questioned about whether her children would forgive her, Norma confidently asserted that they would understand. The focus of the interrogation then shifted towards the money she had received following Sonny's demise. The detectives inquired whether Norma believed she deserved that money considering her actions. In response, Norma firmly stated that she deserved every penny as she disliked working and it was her sole means of sustenance. Each response uttered by Norma left the Naval Criminal Investigative Service agents and the detectives appalled. Agent Morrow later described Norma's demeanor during the interrogation as cold and devoid of remorse. As the interrogation neared its conclusion after a few more inquiries, the detectives broached the topic of her alleged encounter with Fuller. Norma vehemently denied ever meeting him and contradicted Boyd's account, asserting that she believed Boyd was the hired killer. The detectives were aware that Norma was being untruthful, which further contradicted Boyd's narrative. Despite Boyd's arrest for his involvement, he maintained his story and assured the detectives that Norma was lying. The statements of both Norma and Boyd had now devolved into a conflicting narrative. Ultimately, Norma Small, Boyd Smith, and Joel Fuller were all brought to trial for the murder of Sonny Groton. The 3 murder trials took place in the Sagadahoc County Courthouse during the winter of 2002. During Joel Fuller's trial, he vehemently proclaimed his innocence, and to everyone's astonishment, he was acquitted. The jury justified their verdict by explaining that although they did not believe him, there was a lack of concrete evidence implicating Fuller in the crime. Norma never officially acknowledged that Joel Fuller was the one who pulled the trigger during her interrogation. The incriminating statements she made to Agent Truesdale were deemed inadmissible in court due to being considered hearsay. The trial was highly contentious, with both the detectives and the city of Maine shocked by the outcome. While most residents believed Fuller was guilty, there were still a few who believed in his innocence. The detectives had hoped the jurors would see the truth in their investigation, despite the lack of admissible evidence. However, they also respected the jury's decision, understanding that the key evidence against Fuller was inadmissible. Despite not getting the desired verdict, the detectives found a silver lining, as Fuller was already serving multiple life sentences. In Boyd Smith's trial, a new jury was brought in, this time with hard evidence and a confession proving his conspiracy to commit murder. Unfortunately, state law prevented prosecutors from charging Boyd with conspiracy, leading to his acquittal for the murder of Sonny Groton. The jurors faced a difficult decision, as Boyd was guilty of conspiracy, but not murder, a point his defense emphasized during the trial. Ultimately, they had no choice but to set him free. The final trial at the Sagadahoc County Courthouse was Norma's, where Boyd, recently acquitted, testified against her. He claimed that Norma offered him $10,000 to kill her husband in order to collect his military benefits. Norma vehemently refuted Boyd's claims, even going to the extent of asserting to the jurors that she had absolutely no involvement in her husband's demise. The prosecutors, led by Prosecutor Andrew Benson, then questioned Norma about her initial confession during the interrogation and her current contradictory testimony in court. Norma firmly stated that she never confessed, explaining that she merely told the detectives what they wanted to hear. Fortunately, both Justice Nancy Mills, the presiding judge, and the jurors saw through Norma's deceitful words. After 4.5 hours of deliberation, on August 2, 2002, the jury found Norma Small guilty of both murder and theft. Prior to her sentencing, Attorney Christopher, who represented Norma during the trial, argued for a 25-year prison term. However, Prosecutor Anderson Benson urged Justice Nancy Mills to impose a life sentence for Sonny's murder, along with an additional 10 years for the theft. Following the arguments presented by the attorney and the prosecutor, the judge rendered her decision. While delivering the sentences, Justice Mills described Norma as a callous murderer, devoid of any compassion for her late husband, 3 children, or grandchildren. In Justice Nancy Mills's own words, "This is a contract killing. This is a murder for hire. Mervyn Groton was worth more to her dead than alive, and apparently that proved to be true." Norma Small received a 60-year prison sentence for the murder of her husband, Mervyn Sonny Groton. Additionally, she was handed a 10-year sentence for theft, having collected over $180,000 in death benefits and life insurance. In the aftermath of the trial, Norma's daughter, Rosalind, expressed her disgust when her mother claimed that she and her siblings would understand. She further elaborated on her sentiments in a 2016 documentary, asserting that her father would never receive justice as long as Norma was alive. Michael, Norma's son, also shared his thoughts on the case, disclosing details about his parents' marriage. He then drew parallels between his own life and his father's, emphasizing their shared experiences of early tragedies and strong focus on family values. Michael reflected, "Our lives run parallel. We both faced hardships at a young age. We are deeply committed to our families and strive to set a moral example. I learned how to be a man and a father from my dad." On March 26, 2023, Norma Small, who had been serving a 70-year prison sentence for the murder of her husband Sonny Groton and insurance fraud, passed away at the age of 83. She died under the care of medical staff at the Women's Center in Windham, with her death officially recorded at 12:17 a.m. that Sunday morning.